Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Friday at 4. I am your host, Guy Page. I am the editor of the Vermont Daily Chronicle, and joined here with our social media director, Paul Bean. Paul, good afternoon.
You too, Guy. Good afternoon, everyone.
And our reporter, Mike Boloski.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Does anyone here have any question about what the top story of the week was? Well, it's not the fact that the governor introduced a bold new education plan. It's not the new housing plan that he unveiled. It's not the fact that the Attorney General wants to fight domestic homicide with further restrictions on gun surrender compliance. Nor is it even the fact that, a new president was inaugurated. President Trump was sworn in on Monday afternoon, and so much that's happened since then on that front. Actually, the top story is the shooting of a Border Patrol agent under extremely mysterious circumstances after a stop of at least 2 young people in a car, in a Prius with North Carolina plates. 2 people who are armed, were known to be armed by the Homeland Security investigations, and who had been seen walking around Newport, staying at hotels in Newports, wearing black shirts, wearing tactical gear, and carrying guns openly, which of course in Vermont you can do. So it seems like every couple hours, a new important fact has come out. Just this afternoon, 2 huge breaking stories along that line. And we're going to get right to that. Paul, but first, could you please tell folks how they can comment, how they can interact with this show?
Absolutely, and I want to say quickly, of course, too, if there's any audio issues, sound issues, please, and I should just remind both of you, actually, while we're sitting here real quick, obviously you're not sitting too close together, but last week there were some audio issues. If you're out there watching right now, please feel free to write in the chat and let us know. I think we should be good this week. I think we have it sorted out. But audio, visuals, anything, we're getting pretty good at this, but every once in a while we still have some problems. So feel free to let us know. But how you can participate, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on X, if you're watching on Facebook, you just need to write in the chat below. Like you'd comment on anything else. I know y'all know how to do that. Some of our readers at the Vermont Daily Chronicle definitely know how to do that, and we appreciate it when you do it when you're watching live. This is, and thank you very much for the reply. Somebody wrote, "Sounds good so far, Paul." So thanks so much, and keep us updated throughout the show.
All right. Want to give thanks to our sponsors, One Day in July, Proctor Gas, and Randmark Corp. And a little bit of a heads up here, we will have a 4th sponsor coming up very soon. I can tell you who it is. It's Rice Memorial High School, an outstanding private high school located in South Burlington.
A Catholic school, Guy.
It is, in fact, a Catholic school. Yeah, parochial school. So, but we don't have all the details on that yet, but I can tell you it's in the works. So that's exciting for us. We also want to give a really big thanks to 802 Scoop, the folks who are providing us with this studio space in downtown Barrie. As much as I loved being down in Bean Studios in cold weather, it was great, folks, really.
Come on, Guy.
Yeah, I know, Paul.
It's expensive heating.
But this place is great, and we're really, really grateful to Raylene Munier and Michael Booten and all the other folks associated with 802 Scoop. So, our lead story. The latest on this, and I am pulling it up right now, we got an announcement from the FBI. And it comes about an hour after a young woman from the state of Washington, I think 21 or 22 years old, was formally charged with on weapons charges in connection with the shooting death of Border Patrol agent David Mayland of Newport on Monday afternoon. And the circumstances around this, I'm going to read the statement from the Department of Justice. The United States Attorney's Office for the District of Vermont stated that Teresa Youngblood, who is believed to be from Washington State, indeed she is, she's a registered voter. Washington State says that she was registered in Seattle and she's registered to vote in Kings County, no political affiliation cited, has been charged by a criminal complaint with one count of using a deadly weapon while assaulting a United States Border Patrol agent and one count of using and discharging a firearm during and in relation to that assault. According to the charging affidavit, and here's where we get into the details of the story, during the afternoon of January 20th, a United States Border Patrol agent, David Mayland, initiated a traffic stop of a Toyota Prius on Interstate 91 in Coventry, Vermont. The car was occupied by Youngblood and a man who was a citizen of Germany and whose immigration status was in question. Well, I'm going to stop right now for a second on that one. When we broke this story Monday afternoon, we were working off of a national news report that said that this person was, I think the word was illegal immigrant, and I think that's what we used.
Yes.
Boy, did we get a lot of grief from some of the Scott administration people for using that term illegal immigrant, and a lot of, tisking, because subsequently it was learned that this was not a, what you might call a traditional illegal immigrant. This is a person with a visa. However, the stop was made because the status of that visa was in question. So there's certainly one of the reasons for the traffic stop was made had to do with immigration status. So I think we weren't all that far off, Paul, first time around.
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, right, Guy? I mean, we had a conversation that night before I started writing that story, and I brought it to your attention thinking, this might be a story. Mm-hmm. I don't know, anytime something on X like that, and the word Vermont is in it, I'm thinking, is this something that we should focus on? That's kind of my job. And so I'm looking at it and I said, okay, I'll call Guy, see what he thinks of this. And we started talking about it, and we see that News Nation had reported on it. And we kind of took it and ran with that. And we did double check with sources. We talked to Vermont State Police. We didn't just throw it out there.
Right.
We were doing our best to be, timely, because this stuff happens really fast, and that's the business that we're in. I'm not going to necessarily apologize for any of the grief that we may have caused the governor's office with our story.
Apparently, a lot of people were calling him from around the country. A lot of people would be conservative, anti-illegal immigrant persuasion, saying, Vermont, what's wrong with you? And really, in fairness to the governor's office, this was not really a Vermont story. This is Border Patrol, this is immigration. Really no one here except for the Border Patrol agent was a Vermont resident. Vermont law enforcement was not involved.
And even the Border Patrol agent, from my understanding, he was just relocated from Texas within the last month, something like that. And I guess to be fair, once again, apologize for any grief that might have been caused. But one of the comments I heard him make in his press conferences, we don't want to live in 4 years of chaos, basically in reference to our story. And I just thought to myself, well, what have the last 4 years been? And I don't really know.
That's right. He called us out at the press conference. Not maybe
didn't
us
call us out
specifically.
Directly, maybe
not directly.
Some of the I mean, at first, when I first heard it, I thought he was definitely talking about us. And then when one of his members of his staff comes up to me and asks us to put out a correction, well, very obviously they were talking about us. I mean, that story had thousands of views. It is what it is. Maybe we should be more serious about border security, I guess. I don't know. Like, maybe that's why people voted for Donald Trump. Is what it is.
I have a question.
Sure, Mike.
Was any of their angst perhaps a politically correct issue with the term illegal immigrant? And that's just, and I don't know that if it was or not. So I wanted to know.
I think there's something to that. That
There
when,
definitely
when
is.
someone uses the term illegal immigrant, they think, someone from a country that doesn't like us coming in trying to do us harm, a cartel member. The sort of the traditional reading of illegal immigrant, and certainly, and that's a good question, Mike. And this person was not that. He was a German, and I'll tell you more about him now. Fascinating story, I think. A German national named Felix Bauchold, I guess is how you pronounce it, and in his late 20s, and an absolute math computer superstar. A whiz. This is a guy who won national math competitions as a high school student in Germany, like gold medals in math Olympiads in Germany. And the Germans are no slouches in the area of math, computer, and science, right? So this guy was, he was genius. And he goes to the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada, which has a very strong program. I talked with someone who was in the same program with him. His name is Carl Joe. I spoke to him by phone a couple nights ago. And I asked, tell us about this guy. What was he like? What was Felix Bauchold like? And he said, really, he was a nice guy. He was not antisocial. He was not someone who had any particular axe to grind. He was very friendly. He helped other people out. He said that they used to have late-night board game sessions where the faculty would get out the Monopoly board or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, and they would all have study breaks just playing board games. And this Felix Bauchold was part of that. In fact, someone wrote a master's thesis, and in the introduction to his master's thesis, he says, and I want to give thanks to Felix Bauchold and all the others who participated in the late-night board game sessions at Waterloo University. So something happened between when he left Waterloo in 2019, and what we do know about him is that this whole thing with a visa, okay, yeah, he did have a visa. He had what's called a 0-1 visa that is given to very few people. It's not a traditional visa at all. It's given to people with extraordinary ability, quote unquote, extraordinary ability in the area of science, business, and athletics. So for example, David Beckham or Lionel Messi, if they wanted to have a visa to come over and play soccer over here, they would most likely have one of those visas, a special extraordinary ability visa. And I asked Carl Joe, the student at Waterloo, does sort of like anyone who's really good at computers get one of these? And he said, no, this is only the superstars get this visa. So this guy, Felix Bauchold, was a computer math superstar, as evidenced by the fact when he was 19 years, well, when he was a senior, in 2019, he published a paper, a published research paper with two others, but he was the lead author, on a mathematical algorithm for the stability of marriage. That's, and after that, it totally lost me. So, this is a math research paper. So a genius, and went into what's called the quantitative trading business. And that's, crypto is part of that. And as Carl Joe very succinctly said, it's using mathematics to beat the stock market. So he was employed at a very large multinational quantitative trading firm called Tower Research for a year or two as a trader. T-R-A-D-E-R, a trader, okay, quantitative trader. And at some point in the last year, he left that job. And I don't know, but it may be that, yeah, the visa ran out. And the last sort of trace of him we have is that his car, this Prius with North Carolina plates that was involved in this traffic accident, was registered to him, North Carolina plates. And I literally have not had a free minute in the last 2 hours to check up Felix Bauchold, North Carolina. It may be that there's some trace of him there. I don't know.
I'll look into it right now.
Oh,
there you go.
Very good. Okay, so that brings us to these two people and a third person, whose last name, by the way, is Snyder, according to one of our sources. Last name is Snyder, do not have a first name. So there were apparently 3 people as sort of part of this trip to Newport, wearing tactical gear, along with Teresa Youngblood and Felix Bauchold. And they're seen walking around Newport. They go to the Walmart. They stay at the Newport Suites. And on the 20th, they're headed south, an hour or 2 after Trump is sworn in. Maybe no connection there. Maybe there is. We don't know. Okay? Paul and I, we immediately sort of wondered, okay, illegal immigration, someone near the border, there's a shooting, Trump's border policy is radically different from the previous administration. Could there be a connection? And we sort of hinted in our story, well, hey, maybe. And we don't know an answer to that one way or the other.
Actually, can I just say, it was not necessarily us who inferred that to begin with. That was News Nation. That was
News
a
Nation.
quote
Yeah.
from what she had said on her. That was the agents had told her.
Allie Bradley.
Allie Bradley at News Nation. So
right. Okay.
you know,
So we were referencing a very reputable news organization that was claiming to have inside sources. And when it's an early breaking story, that's stuff that you mention as long as you qualify it and say that was the source. So brings us up to the afternoon of January 20th. And what happened? Well, it says Youngblood and her companion, Bauchold, had come to the attention of law enforcement a few days earlier when a hotel employee in Lyndonville expressed concern about them being dressed in tactical clothing and protective gear while also being armed. And by the way, I want to give thank you to one of our eagle-eyed readers, a retired educator named Jerry, lives in South Burlington, who picked out on one of the from one of the news stories what these guys were packing. And I'm going to quickly read it for you right now before we get back to that press release. Let's see, there it is. Okay. A search of the Prius later uncovered, quote, various pieces of tactical gear, including a ballistic helmet, night vision goggle monocular, a tactical belt with holster, and a magazine loaded with cartridges, 2 full-face respirators, 48 rounds of .380 caliber, 38 caliber jacketed hollow point ammunition, a package of shooting range targets, some of which were used, 2 handheld 2-way radios, about a dozen electronic devices and multiple removable electronic storage devices, among other items, the court affidavit added. Yeah, so these people weren't just, whatever they were doing, they were not just playing around. They clearly had something in mind. So, law enforcement also observed the couple in the Prius earlier on January 20th at a Walmart parking lot in Newport, and at that time, the German man, now Colt, was seen wrapping unidentifiable objects with aluminum foil while seated in the vehicle. Someone tell me. And watchers, viewers out there, any ideas? Why would someone in this situation be wrapping things in aluminum foil? Anyone know? Any ideas?
I have a question. You had mentioned the bullets sounded unique, and I'm not a regular firearms expert, although I'm Second Amendment, whatever, but I don't have that knowledge. Could you say again what their hollow point something?
Yeah, 48, hold on a second. 48 rounds of
38 caliber, jacketed hollow point.
Jacketed hollow point. So does any of that mean any? Maybe that's normal. Maybe
Hollow
it's not.
point is very dangerous because it explodes. It essentially comes apart inside a person and causes grievous damage.
So I guess a quick question: is any of this illegal?
No sign of that.
Okay, they don't say that. Okay.
So far.
Because I know not all bullets are created equal.
Right.
There are definitely bullets out there that only the
Right.
military would have, and somebody argue even.
Yeah.
I do have a response from someone whose name I cannot read on the show. It's just
Okay.
it's too vulgar. But he says Faraday for phones. That must be Faraday referring probably to the aluminum. Maybe if you wouldn't mind there, Cat Trigger, if you could maybe let us know what you mean by that. But I think when he's talking about the aluminum wrapping.
Faraday, it impedes signals.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
Okay, and somebody says there is a bit
Well, hold on. Let's back up on that. So
Okay.
Faraday for phone would be a Faraday cage is something that prevents electromagnetic influences, including perhaps listening on phones. So if they were maybe trying to track, if they feared that someone's trying to track their phones, not a unreasonable assumption, then they would wrap them in aluminum. Thank you very much, unpronounceable person.
Or
there.
too vulgar.
What's the next thing, Paul?
I was just going to say, I'm getting comment that there's a bit of an echo from you and Mike. So Mike, if you wouldn't mind maybe kind of scooting a little further away that way, further to the left. Let us know if that fixes it, guys. That would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
As far away from each other as possible, gentlemen. I think that'll fix it, but please let us know, guys. Keep us updated. But that does lead to the big question, though. What were they doing?
What were they doing?
What was this all about?
Yeah.
I don't really, it doesn't really make any sense. And, when the FBI gets involved and then assures us, oh, no, they're at first anyway, the visa was renewed in November, and now we're again kind of being told that whole thing might be in question.
Yes,
well, which is it, guys? How you guys are the FBI? How do you not know?
Right.
What's going on here? And that's I just don't quite understand it. So maybe, Guy,
Now, I want to throw one more thing in here, which is this is very atypical. There's this idea that the Border Patrol stopped, the people got out, started shooting. No, that didn't happen, because one of my sources is a very highly placed Vermont law enforcement criminal justice person, and he said that he actually was driving by the scene. He himself drove by the scene around 2:30 in the afternoon, and he saw them out there. He saw the car stopped. He saw the blue car with North Carolina plates stopped, and a Border Patrol person talking to someone outside. So for, it sounds like at least half an hour, they were talking. There was no shooting going on. The Border Patrol and either Youngblood or Balcol, probably Youngblood, they were talking, and something then, well, pardon the expression, triggered the gunfire. after that. And who knows what that was? Was it maybe a threat to arrest? Was it something that one or both of them, that the Border Patrol guy said? We don't know. But something turned that from being a rather lengthy conversation to bang. And we don't know what it is. Okay, so.
I had
Go ahead,
just
Mike.
an observation, sort of a popular culture reference, if you will. The infamous pullover scene in the movie Fargo from the 1980s or 90s, I'm not sure. The original, not the new Netflix series, the original movie. What happened when everything went bad with that pullover scene was the officer found something in the car, in that case a kidnapped woman. But in any case, the very moment that was an illicit activity was discovered, everything unfolded quite, for those who've seen the movie, quite not great. And it's hard not to think to this current situation by the border. What was that triggering moment?
Right.
There must have been something in the car that most of that conversation maybe he didn't see. What was that triggering moment? And that'll be something to...
You're right.
And no pun intended by triggering moment, by the way.
So one of the things that was going on is that days before this happened, the authorities were asking people in the area, are these people, Youngblood, Balcolt, and Snyder, whoever Snyder is, trying to buy real estate? Do you know of any efforts by them to buy real estate? So were they, looking for a place to practice shooting or something? Northeast Kingdom, not a bad place to do that if you want to do some shooting in peace and quiet.
Great place to do it.
Yeah. So we just don't know. So anyway, after the aluminum foil thing, during the January 20 vehicle stop, the FBI says on the Department of Justice press release, both Youngblood and her companion were armed. And by the way, they knew they were armed. The authorities knew that they were armed. During the stop, Youngblood fired her handgun without warning toward at least one of the Border Patrol agents while outside the vehicle. Fired without warning while outside the vehicle. Her German companion also tried to draw a firearm, and at least one Border Patrol agent fired his service weapon. The exchange of gunfire resulted in Border Patrol agent David Mayland sustaining fatal injuries. Youngblood and her companion were also shot. The German was pronounced dead at the scene, and Youngblood was taken to the hospital for medical care. The investigation is all going, and a long alphabet list of authorities are looking into this, saying good things, nice things about Agent Mayland, who, by the way, there was a lengthy procession in Burlington today. Today, was it yesterday? Today, where his body was taken from the Medical Center Hospital morgue down to the Reedy Funeral Home on Chauvin Road, and a procession of 300 law enforcement vehicles.
It was yesterday, Guy. Don't mean to be a pain.
That was yesterday?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Okay.
Sorry.
My days get mixed up.
I hear you.
So much going on.
I know.
I'm glad you corrected me on that.
It was today's story we published.
That's right.
I just pulled it up for everyone here to see the photo.
There you go.
It doesn't exist until we cover it.
Yeah, right. I wish. Paul, I think now would be a good time while people sort of think on this, and I invite, if you know anything about this, if you saw something happen, if you saw them up in Newport, if you have any insight into what was this all about, any thoughts, really any speculation about what this was all about, we want to know. That's what the show is for, okay? So please feel free to comment. And while you're sort of thinking on that, we are going to go to our first sponsor announcement, okay? We really want to honor one of our sponsors, Proctor Gas, the propane people, owned and operated by our good friend and supporter, Judy Taranovich. The team at Proctor Gas has more than 100 years of combined experience in the propane industry and is dedicated to bringing the best possible service, products, and customer care to residents throughout Vermont. So thank you very much, Proctor Gas, for making Friday at 4 possible. Thank you. Now, actually, Paul, you know what?
Yeah.
This is not on the agenda, but now might not be a bad time to bring up a little bit about the latest with the Clean Heat Standard.
Or you mean the EV situation, or
Yeah.
you just mean kind of like the Global Warming Solutions Act?
I would say maybe, well, first I'll give a quick take on the Global Warming Solutions Act, and then I'd like for you to kind of fill us in somewhat on what you wrote about yesterday on
Sure.
the EVs. Press conference today, the Senate caucus, and I asked right out front, said, so Senator Beck, minority leader for the Senate caucus in Republicans, said, is there any amount, is the amount zero that you would accept for a carbon tax as a result of the Clean Heat Standard, for people paying extra for this? And he said, that's right, zero. We will not accept any amount of money that consumers have to pay to make the Clean Heat Standard happen. And then he said, Vermont is already doing so much for reducing its carbon footprint. Our carbon footprint has been going down for a lot of reasons, and we do not need to do this. Is this sort of radical transition and carbon credits and forcing the fossil fuel industry and the consumers, the customers of the fossil fuel industry, to pay extra so that the renewable power industry can have a bigger footprint in Vermont. We just don't need to do that, was his point. Paul, you've been kind of covering the whole electric cars thing.
Yeah.
So give us the top line on that.
Yeah, well, you know, the big takeaway, so I actually, first and foremost, I listened to a testimony from Matt Coda with the Vermont, well, I don't want to get this right. I don't want to get this wrong. He's with the Vermont Fuel Dealers Association and the Vermont Auto Dealers Association. Yes. I want to make, okay.
I think that's right.
I think that's right too. He gave a presentation in the House Committee on Transportation. And basically the gist of what he explained to them was, okay, hey, look, as part of the Global Warming Solutions Act, we have to meet these specified goals. So by 2026, 2030, and 2035,
okay.
I believe by 2035, we need to get under 1990 levels of carbon emissions in the state of Vermont. So, and one of the ways in order to do that is to reduce automobile emissions. So one of the things that Vermont has signed on to is what California has done, which is their basis for this is the Clean Air Act, which is a federal law that was created in 1963, amended a few times. One of the most specific ones was in 1970, when basically California said, okay, so we want to do this. The Clean Air Act, we want to have this, but we want to be able to control tailpipe emissions in the state of California. And I'm not going to get deep into the weeds on all that, but basically what they did is they set a standard for that. So they've been able to do this for a while, and we've signed on with what California is doing. And one of the things that we have to do to meet the global requirements of the Global Warming Solutions Act is to go 100% electric by 2035. So all new...
Because California's doing it, we have to do it too.
Because California's doing it, we have to do it too. So,
right.
But that was the big takeaway. So not only is that means next year, so, or excuse me, like new year, auto year, 2026, I believe it was, I think he said, oh man, I'm going to sound like such, 35% of the new vehicles sold,
right.
I think it's 35% new vehicles sold in the state of Vermont have to be electric vehicles.
Well, what if people don't want to buy electric, Paul?
Well, they got it. No, they can drive over the border and go to New Hampshire and buy a gas-powered vehicle.
So if I understand it right, the way they're going to control that is that 35% of the cars on the lot need to be electric. Basically, a third need to be electric.
That's what it is. This is what people don't understand is it's not a mandate. And this is what Matt told me. It's not a mandate on the consumer. It's not a mandate on the auto dealers. It's a mandate on the manufacturers, because California is able to do this as well. We're doing this, right? So we say to the manufacturers, well, you're not allowed to sell in our state. 35% of the cars in our state have to be electric-powered vehicles. And by 2035, by the way, it has to be 100% electric vehicles.
So Toyota or whatever
Yeah.
can only, they're going to be controlling their sales in the state of Vermont, according to state law and California regs, somehow.
Technically, yeah. Well, they would actually put pressure on the dealers to do this.
Okay.
But what this would cause is for people, to just go out of state and buy their cars.
Right, because
They're not going to, I mean, the market demand's not there yet. Maybe it will be in 10 years. I'm not going to say that's not possible, but as things are right now, we're only at 12% new cars sold electric.
Right.
And we're not talking about how, and then another thing he mentioned is we're not talking about the big rig trucks yet, right? We're not talking about a lot of these other larger vehicles, work trucks too, which just aren't even close to the same standard as some of the new vehicles. So
if you're, let's say Bean Chevrolet comes back in business, you're a car dealer, and you're only able to sell 15 electric cars. Sorry, folks, that's all they're going to buy, 15. That means if it's basically a third, you can only sell 30 gas-powered cars.
Exactly.
After that, you're capped, pal.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter if the customer wants to buy 200 from you.
Yeah.
You're capped.
Or if what if the customer's the state of Vermont, right? And that's what it comes down to. It's like the fleet management, right? They want to have a certain percentage of the fleet be electric, and eventually 100% electric. And it just comes back to like that same exact. But quickly, what it'll do is it'll put car dealerships out of business, because either people are going to go out of, both things are going to happen.
Yep.
People are going to go out of state, and then the manufacturers are going to start sending less vehicles so that you do have a smaller inventory. Because if they're only selling, so many electric vehicles, right? If you're a small car dealership, to use your number at 15, and you're not even selling all 15 of them, right? So who's on the hook for those cars if they're not being sold? Well, the car dealership is.
Right.
This has been a problem for a long time anyway. So you're going to decrease the size of these businesses, which are already small businesses. Most of these businesses that are selling cars, they're not large, right? I mean, I know something about this, right?
Yeah, I know.
And they're going to put a lot of good people, out of business just for their ideology. If this happens, I honestly don't think at this point that a lot of this stuff is going to continue.
Why not? Think that Trump administration is going to do something about it?
Actually, there's nothing that the Trump administration can do about it in the state of Vermont, unless Congress passes a law that changes California, for example, and the 12 other states that have signed on with what California has done. Unless Congress passes a law that says you're not allowed to do this, or changes the Clean Air Act in some function, Trump's his executive order that he basically rolled back Biden's whole by 2030 50% of all new vehicles must be electric, doesn't really mean anything, unfortunately.
I heard it had to do with California needs a waiver from the U.S. EPA, so that is sort of a regulatory thing. But maybe that's driven by law, and the law. Well, yeah, I guess we'll find out, huh?
Well, that's the thing. When you start getting real deep into that part of it, it gets pretty complicated. In California, there's a history there, and to be quite fair with California, I mean, look, before all this talk on climate change, before there were even cars, there was particulate pollution problems in California. If somebody was burning, obviously coal, but if there were fires, or people were, coming into town on a horse and buggy, all the dust and everything. I mean, they've always had issues with this. So California, to be fair, like, do what you want there, guys, but we live in Vermont. Let's do our thing, maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
So I want to talk about, I want to honor one more sponsor now.
Sure.
I think now's a good time. Ranmark Corporation and Village Homes. Ranmark Corporation is owned and operated by Randy Rulo of Berlin. He's a longtime expert excavator and builder. And their residential building division is Village Homes, specializing in affordable, how about that? Affordable, energy efficient, modular and manufactured home projects. And I live in this neighborhood. And let me tell you, these homes are beautiful. We watch them putting them up. Hey, homes being built, pretty cool, huh? But we watch them being built, and they go up quickly, and they're gorgeous. These homes, and I think they're not very expensive compared to a lot of other homes. So good job. Their family team and skilled craftsmen have decades of experience to complete your project with ease, on time, and on budget. So, Mike, you were about to say something. What's on your mind?
I found a study on EVs that I had referenced in some of my articles over the years that I just wanted to remind folks on before we move on. This was the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And what the purpose of the study was to find out the true raw cost, all subsidies stripped away, of EV cars. And the results were kind of startling. Nearly $50,000 is the true average cost. It comes out to like 48 something to be exact. I couldn't find the exact number. But I have the study right in front of me. And one of the shocking points here, and their key points, the amount of public subsidy per EV is about 7-fold the claimed economic benefit of the EV technology itself. So in other words, the entire purpose of the EV is to be this economical new, great technology for affordable energy, and yet we are losing, via the public subsidies, 7-fold that amount per vehicle sold, manufactured. So that to me is a pretty darn, how do you say, not a great stat for EV advocates.
So Mike, I am glad you brought that up, because one of the interesting points that Matt Cota made in his report is there's this whole sort of mythology that we need public subsidies so that people will buy these. And the fact is that last October 24, the state of Vermont, essentially the subsidy money kind of ran out, and yet, so even though subsidies were a lot lower, of course, because they'd kind of run out of their subsidy money for the year, that was the best month for EV sales. And a lot of the other data basically says, there's no real direct correlation here between public subsidies and EV sales. One of the reasons for that is a lot of car companies have very aggressive subsidies of their own. Nissan, for example, the Nissan Leaf, very well subsidized because they want people to buy these, affordable EVs. So we're spending, I asked one of the governor's secretaries last couple weeks ago, how much are we spending for climate in our state budget? She said $500 million is all kinds of climate spending in the current budget, and a lot of that is subsidies for EVs. I don't know the exact amount, but it's a lot, and it's a real question. Even if we want to be driving EV sales, is that the way to do it? Paul, you were going to weigh in on something.
Well, and just to add to your point there about that $500 million that we're going to spend on climate, if I'm not mistaken, part of that is they're not even sure where that money's going to come from. If I'm not
right.
incorrect about that, correct me if I'm wrong, folks. But another thing I just wanted to add, whether or not Vermont does this, it comes back again. Anything having to do with the Global Warming Solutions Act, it doesn't really matter. It's not even a drop in the bucket. Again, on the grand scheme of climate change, the overall, right? So let's assume that carbon emissions are causing these extreme weather patterns and change of climate, and the ice caps are melting, all this stuff. Well, if countries like China don't stop doing what they're doing, and they're not going to, by the way, it doesn't really matter what we do in Vermont, for that matter. And here's I just wanted to share quickly, this is something I heard earlier today on the Joe Rogan podcast. He was talking with a guy earlier. China's carbon emissions exceed all developed nations combined. So that's a BBC story.
Wow.
And I don't know, that's a BBC.
I thought we were number one. No?
Vermont, United States?
Yeah.
No, not even close. Not
Wow.
even the United States, and this is part of their conversation as well. I was listening to, and I send it along, folks. It's his most recent one. I think it came out yesterday. The United States has done a lot to reduce carbon emissions.
They have.
A lot.
Yeah.
So
Gone down.
It's gone down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of these numbers they're constantly talking about and looking at is like pre-1990 levels.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, like we're not that far away from it. But the global temperature continues to rise. So something else going on. Not exactly sure. Leave it at that.
Right. Huh. Before we close, I want to. There are three. Let's just call them wild theories about what those two young people were doing. What were they up to? And I want to run over three of them, and they're all baseless. Okay, they're extremely unproven, but they all maybe have a bit of a thread. And so if we want to sort of kick around and have a bull session, all this is at this point.
Disclaimer.
Yes. You got the disclaimer?
Very
You got it,
transparent.
folks?
This is
Okay.
us just talking.
Just in case someone in the administration is listening, all right? The first thought would be, let's see, black clothing, tactical gear, woman from Seattle, Washington, one of the centers of Antifa. Well, might this be? And certain animus towards the federal government, possible. And again, right after public enemy number one for Antifa, Donald Trump, is inaugurated, could it be Antifa? And I would say, yeah, anything's possible. What's going against that, though, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but one thing Antifa doesn't really do is guns. They don't do firearms. They don't walk around and carry. It's just not their thing.
It's not unprecedented, though. It has happened.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
but I can stand by what Guy's saying is I think they kind of like don't really believe in all that. I mean, they might be like rambunctious and rebels, but I don't know. Are they really like?
It's happened though in Texas. They showed up once with rifles.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not commenting, one way or the other whether they should do that or not when they do their thing, but it did happen. It's on at least one scenario down in Texas.
Fair enough.
All right. Another one is, okay, we know there's a, this guy was big into quantitative trading. One aspect of quantitative trading is cryptocurrency. Those two things are linked. In October of 24, the Biden administration cracked down big time on a bunch of cryptocurrency firms, including one called QuantZ. And if you're into this thing, you're called a quant. Okay, so that's a link right there. This guy was this Balcolt was in the quant business. So is it possible that one of the reasons he was sort of under observation was that maybe there's some sort of finance crime going on here? That there's no doubt the Biden administration wanted to be the big dogs in the crypto world. They wanted to have some sort of national control over it. And here are some companies that clearly were breaking the law and going off the reservation back in October of 24. Don't know of any connection at all with this guy or with this company, not saying that. But, okay, bull session stuff, maybe.
I have another comment here from somebody,
Okay.
and this is still, again, bull session, just talking.
Yep.
TRR, Mr. Ultra, I don't know how to read your name, I'm sorry. I wonder if their cult has any connections to Martijn Rothblatt and the Terracium cult leader in Vermont. And I know you've talked a little about this, but just so people that know, adherents, I pulled this up and I'll show you on the screen share just so you can see, because I wanted to see what was that. Yeah. Adherents of Terracium believe they can upload their mind to the internet and later on their own conscious be downloaded into a new body after death. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. That was I'm sorry
Well,
if I beat you.
there is. We've written about that particular subject. There's the new electronic airplane industry that's based out of the Burlington Airport.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's it's
Beta
really,
Technologies.
Beta. Yes.
Yeah.
Person who invested heavily in that. One of the early strong investors is this was Martin, now Martine, person who strongly believes in putting one's consciousness into a computer and into like a robot. This person's significant other. They've actually made a robot who looks and sounds and has the identity of this person. And this is video that's all over the internet.
And this is in Vermont.
She has a place in Starksboro, Vermont. Not sure how much is there now.
This person must have a lot of money.
Oh yes, it's the person who founded Sirius Radio,
Yeah.
and one or two other completely different. But this is an Elon Musk level polymath genius entrepreneur.
I wonder if they have any influence in the local political scene.
It's a good question. Yeah, but so anyway, but they mentioned the cult.
The terrorists.
I'm gonna bring this up and say it is a fact that there is some social media chatter that Felix Baucult was associated with a cult called ZIS, which some people on social media refer to as a death cult. And that may be total baloney from A to Z, okay? I'm not putting any credence on that at all, except that there are people who claim to that online that this person was an active member of this what they called a death cult. I just bring it up, and who knows? I expect that more this goes on, this case goes on, the more affidavits come out, the more we're going to learn. Really, what was motivating these people to do this? But we just don't know. We don't know.
Guys, should we mention our final sponsor?
We should definitely do that.
I don't know if you're. No, I didn't mean to cut to the chase.
You just read my mind.
Okay, good.
In fact, I ran into Dan Cunningham today. One Day in July. One Day in July is the Burlington-based investment firm, provides low-fee, diversified index investment management and fiduciary financial advice for individuals, families, and institutions. Go to onedayinjuly.com to learn how to reduce fees and improve performance, avoid behavioral errors with their proprietary simulator tool, and educational resources. Wrote a story about One Day in July a few weeks ago, and they are among the very fastest growing investment firms in the country, right out of Burlington. They're on College Street in Burlington, Lower College Street, and this is one of the young powerhouses in investment. And one thing I will say that when Dan and I were chatting today, he's just shaking his head over housing. housing. He could get, he has trouble attracting great talent to come and live in Vermont because they love everything about it, but they say, oh, come on, I've got to be able to buy a house. And it's just not working out. So that is a really good example of how our housing crisis, which we didn't even get to today, but there was huge housing news this week, but from the governor's plan on what he wants to do to expand housing. But that'll just have to be a discussion for another time. So it's almost 5 o'clock, and gentlemen, first of all, Paul, do we have any more?
A couple quick comments.
Sure.
I have one from Dexter Lefevre. I just want to read. He posted this on Twitter. Dexter, great to hear from you. Glad you're out there watching.
Yeah.
He writes, 2 packets of cell phones wrapped in aluminum foil, an iPhone, at least 2 more cell phones and multiple laptops were also recovered from the Prius, according to the affidavit. So that kind of answers that question for you. What were they doing with the aluminum foil and everything? Definitely Faraday for the phones to avoid tracking. I do have a couple questions, and I would love to be able to answer them, guys, about well, here we go. We've seen the negative results of the California regulations. They're not a good model for anything. If I bought an electric vehicle, I would have to heat my garage or my battery would die. I don't know if that's true.
There is some truth to that.
There is some truth to that?
From my experience writing about them.
Because it'll be cold? Too cold?
Well, yeah, batteries and cold are not friends.
Well, true. I mean, actually, my car battery died the other day. I had to jump start it. It was so cold out. And that's happened, of course, before. But
yes, I'm having a difficult time getting reporters to show up to the Statehouse because they're talking about their car batteries all the time. Yes.
That is a true story. My car battery, I need a new one.
I guess, you know what, I
And they're thinking, pay me more, pal, and I can get a new battery.
Maybe we should all just get Tesla's guy.
Yeah, sure, another 60, 70 grand. I'm
you
sure
could probably
that's
get
in
a
the
subsidy.
company budget, isn't it? Yeah, there you go.
Get a subsidy.
Yeah. Woohoo.
Okay, and
You
then
can't get rid of them apparently at the dealerships now, so they're getting cheaper.
also from Kitty Trigger, he writes, is Vermont being sued for not meeting its climate goals? Yes, it is. Already being sued by the Vermont Conservation Law Foundation. It was a lawsuit that was filed, I believe, in November of last year.
And it's being sued by the Petroleum Institute. It's being sued from both sides.
That's right.
On this.
He also writes QAnon, very funny. This is from, I live in Vermont, I do what I want. That's his name. Have they said the Border Patrol agent was shot by the suspect? Some of the articles seem vague on who shot him. From our reports, from what we understand, it was the female, the female companion that shot him.
That's the report.
I can't think of her name right now.
Teresa Youngblood.
Teresa. And finally from Vermont 44, great show, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for out there for tuning in. Thank you everyone out there who's listening. Click the subscribe button, follow us. Follow us, share this video, what you've learned today. Help us piece the story together. That's what this is all about. I've had some revelations.
And pitch them about being a sustaining subscriber, Paul.
I can do that. Yeah, if you're not already currently a sustaining subscriber to the Vermont Daily Chronicle, for just 30 cents a day, you can support free speech in Vermont. We basically get to say whatever we want on this show. Well, I don't know about whatever, but basically whatever we want. We don't have any big advertisers looming over us trying to control our stories, trying to manipulate what we write. We try to get to the very bottom of things. We try to get to the truth. Yes, sometimes we occasionally make mistakes. That's okay. We correct them. And we believe that the work that we're doing is truly based upon our own integrity and what we believe is right. And sometimes, you know, things go very well, sometimes not, and that's okay. We live and die by our own sword, and that's the way it is. And we hope that you can support us in that, because we hope that as Vermonters, you believe in free speech and can support for just, I mean, it's just $9 a month, 30 cents a day. That's how you can be a superstar subscriber to the Vermont Daily Chronicle.
Go to the website, right underneath the masthead, it'll say contribute. Click on that, and you're off to the races. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, That reminded me of a quote from, I think it was Michael Lindell, the pillow guy. Mm-hmm. He said, somebody asked him once, why are you giving all this money away to causes for, liberty and so forth? And he turns to the person asking, he says, well, they're going to take my money sooner or later. I better spend it now. So that's what I would say to those people with their $9 if you have it. You better spend it now because they're going to come get it from you anyway.
Talk about a guy that's been, man, has he been substantiated. Yeah. But anyway there, folks, Guy's giving me the signal. We gotta shut down the show. It's 5:02. Guy, you want to close it out for us?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. See you again next Friday at 4.